Welcome to another episode of the Chasing That Money Show. And of course, I'm your host, Leon Wilson. This is one of my favorite lessons. So sit back and relax. Let's get this party started. Here we go. Let's get started. Today we're going to talk about support and resistance. As you can see from our chart, this is Alphabet or Google, whatever you want to call it. But it's Google to all of us. And this is one of my preferred stocks. I'm on YouTube. What can I say? Today we're going to talk about resistance and support. Here on the chart, you'll see that support is being represented by this black line here. This line is holding up the accounts. This is the way that I look at this thing. If you notice, I start way back here. This is a 3-month chart, I believe, and I'm zoomed in on it, trying to show back when I started watching the stock. And if you look here, you'll see that the stock had been up high around about $1.03 or something like that, and it met some resistance. Resistance is this top line, this red line that I'm showing you. The stock reached the resistance, and then they started to sell off. People began to take profits at this point. And so it started to sell off, and it sold off, and it dropped all the way down to, looks like $1. And that's when it met support, the black line. It supported the stock. People, the bears they were trying to sell it, whereas the bulls were trying to buy the stock. And they did, but it couldn't maintain it. And it began to drop again, and finally it broke through support, which would have been a good time for people who buy puts or short stock. This is where you buy and get in. Fast forward to the last couple of days, I was watching the stock, and once it went up and it broke through resistance, again, that's this top line, that's when you really need to pay attention. And this long red candle here told me that this stock was getting ready to drop. There was going to be a sell-off. So I continued to watch it as it began to sell off, and I'm looking at my stock and saying, oh, what's going on? And there was a fight between the bulls and the bears, and this back and forth and all of these different things. But eventually it did settle down on support. Once it hit support, it stayed there for a little while, and then it began to go back up. And so it bounced off of support. That's how I look at it. It bounced off support, and then the bulls began to buy the stock again, and it started to rise again. But here's that resistance. Here is that you can see resistance as a ceiling. And once it reached the ceiling, you see how this long green candle is followed by this short red candle with a long wick. This is where it stopped the momentum of the stock, and it began to go the other way. The bears started to sell off, and the stock started to lose its momentum. And as you see it, it drops here and it breaks through support. Now again, this would have been a good time to short the stock once it broke through. But if you look at this, at least I did. Once I saw this long green candle, I knew that there was a market for this stock. I also watched the fundamentals. And the fundamentals tells you how good this company is, and we know Google is strong. This is a $70 billion company and some. So the fundamentals are good with this company, and I looked at that and that drop, and actually here is when I actually bought more stock. Actually, I bought a couple more options, and this was at $98. Well, I knew that earnings were coming up soon, and I knew, at least I felt that the company was strong and they were going to have a good report. And after they broke through support, you see there was a turn. The short red candle, long stem, followed by a big green candle. So the bulls had begun to buy the stock because it was shorted. Then they began to buy, and I was locked in right there. And you can see it broke back through support, and it continued to rise. But here was this was it. This was the sign for me. It goes up to resistance. Now remember, before it hit resistance and came back down. So I was prepared to take some profits once it reached resistance. But this candle here, once it kind of broke through resistance, I stayed with it. And actually more, I think it topped out at 105. So I left some money on the table, but I was comfortable with that. I had no issues with that. Sometimes you leave some money on the table, and that's quite all right, as long as you reach your percentage. I do have a percentage that when I get into an option, this is how much I need to make from this option. And I keep it respectful, 30%, 20%, depending on the stock. And then I get out. And even if it went up another 10, 20%, I'm not mad because I've taken my money off the table and I'm happy with that. I've made a profit. I won the day. And that's all you can do is try to win just one day and then add those days up. Support and resistance. If you don't look at any other indicators, look at support and resistance. Try to set a level and then track that level. And when there's a breakout, try your best to take advantage of it. Well, that's all. Please leave a comment down below if this was helpful. I know sometimes I just ramble, but I'm just telling you how I see it and how it is. Until next time, take care, my friends. Take care.